Kurt Cobain lived for 27 years, some of which were blighted by excruciating stomach pains, but he managed to get treatment for that problem. He survived. Referring to the days prior to Kurt Cobain's death, Courtney Love later told the media, quote, "Everybody knew he was going to die," end quote. She wanted people to believe Kurt had an out-of-control drug dependency during the last few days of his life. Of all the phony stories concocted and spread by Courtney Love, this particular lie blinded the eyes of the authorities, the media, and most of the public. It helped make Courtney Love a very rich widow. Let's see what Kurt and those close to him had to say about these so-called suicidal tendencies during the days, weeks, and months leading up to his untimely death. Quote, "I've been asked repeatedly if Kurt was on drugs while I was there, during sessions for the In Utero album, and I've been around people who use dope a lot, and on the one hand, I know how they behave, and on the other, I know how deceptive they can be, and my best estimate was that no, he wasn't. He was being very productive. That was a period of his life where he was very focused. He was focused on making this record, and he didn't want to let the other guys down. He was committed to the task. He was as sober, and I use that adjective to mean serious, as anybody I've ever worked with in the studio." Quote, "If Kurt was using heroin while he was around me, he hit it well. In Seattle last summer of 1993, he was alert and happy." Quote, "After trying everything for his stomach, from pills to a vegetarian diet to a chanting regimen, Kurt is ecstatic to have found a doctor who's prescribing him an experimental gastrointestinal medicine that works. He says he doesn't want to give the name because the medicine hasn't actually been approved by the FDA, but it's reduced his stomach episodes almost as effectively as heroin. But now if I take heroin, it makes me vomit right away, so that doesn't do any good." That's a direct quote from Kurt.
How's your stomach? Do you find anything to...
It's gone.
Yeah?
Yeah. I finally have been prescribed the right stomach medicine after 6 years of being in constant pain. Finally, I haven't had a stomach problem for like over a year now.
Quote, "I never went out of my way to say anything about my drug use. I didn't want some 15-year-old kid who likes our band to think it's cool to do heroin. I think people who glamorize drugs are fucking not very nice people, and if there's a hell, they'll go there." Quote, "I'm not in any way afraid of death. I'm afraid of dying now. I don't want to leave behind my wife and child, so I don't want to do things that would jeopardize my life. I try to do as little things as I can to jeopardize it. I don't want to die." Quote, "He, Kurt, was very open, very honest, and seemingly very happy. He also seemed clean. I know it seems strange in the light of Kurt's Rome overdose, and I even asked photographer Mark Lealoha if he thought the same. He agreed that Kurt seemed happier and cleaner than we'd seen him or known him to be. Kurt did not seem even mildly depressed, let alone suicidal. The whole evening in Atlanta turned out to be one of the best nights of the year. A great show, a relaxed post-gig atmosphere, no bull nuts, just a good vibe." Stefan Cherazi interviewed Kurt in November 1993, resulting in an article published in Kerang's December 11, 1993 edition. Cherazi reported that at Nirvana's November 1993 gig at the Omni Arena in Atlanta, he met Kurt backstage. "Frances Bean is wandering the premises with a beaming smile for everyone. Soon, Kurt will lovingly, patiently feed her some macaroni cheese dinner for a late-night snack, before cuddling her and talking quietly in her ear. Quote, 'I'm not going to say a damn word about it being tough. I'm having the best time in my life,' laughs Cobain." In an interview with Kurt published January 1994 in Rolling Stone, David Frick asks, "One of the songs that you cut from In Utero at the last minute was, 'I hate myself and want to die.' How literally did you mean it?" Kurt answers, "As literal as a joke can be. Nothing more than a joke. And that has to do with why we took it off. We knew people wouldn't get it. They take it too seriously. It was totally satirical, making fun of ourselves. I'm thought of as this pissy, complaining, freaked out schizophrenic who wants to kill himself all the time. He isn't satisfied with anything. And I thought it was a funny title. I wanted it to be the title of the album for a long time, but I knew the majority of the people wouldn't understand it." End quote. In this interview, it is evident that Kurt was concerned about his fans getting the wrong impression from such a provocative title. Quote, "It has been a year almost to the day since I interviewed Kurt. At the time, he told me he was happier than he had ever been, and frankly, I believed him." David Frick, Rolling Stone. In a March 12th edition of Melody Maker, Everett True commented on Kurt's drug and alcohol consumption as follows, quote, "Although it's no secret that in the past Kurt Cobain has taken drugs, sometimes to excess, the last time we met, in Seattle last December 1993, he seemed completely clean. That is, he was clean, optimistic, and happier than he'd been in years. I knew that he'd cut down on his drug taking for a while. He hadn't taken alcohol in any serious quantity in several years, that's for sure." End quote. Singer Pete Shelley, whose band The Buzzcocks opened some of the early dates on Nirvana's 1994 European tour, said that contrary to rumors, Cobain had appeared to be in good health and reasonably high spirits. Quote, "On the first date in Lisbon, he came into the dressing room and started chatting. If anything, while the rest of us were getting into all sorts of debauchery, he would just wish us a good night and go off for an early night," Pete remarked. Quote, "He seemed really clean when we were on tour. In some ways, it was a bit awkward, because he wasn't really joining in the very mild debauchery that went on." Bassist Tony Barber told Melody Maker, quote, "I know he was not taking drugs on that tour. He was walking around drinking Evian water and looking clean every time I saw him. He didn't seem to consider himself a star. He seemed like a shy bloke who didn't have many friends. Often when I was talking to him, I felt like saying something like, 'Look, if you need a mate just to go for a drink with or anything, I'm here.' And then I came home last night and saw it on the news. I couldn't believe it. It's just so sad." Quote, "When he talked to me, he seemed to be happy," said Kurt's grandmother Iris Cobain, remembering a phone conversation she had with him 2 weeks before his death. In his call, Kurt arranged to go fishing with his grandfather the following week. In a September 1996 edition of Photo Story, a French publication, Kurt's photographer friend Yuri Lenket explains how he showed Kurt his pictures of Cambodia. Kurt became interested, and Lenket asked if he would like to go to Cambodia when the In Utero European tour of February-March 1994 ended. Kurt was very enthusiastic and asked Lenket how he could go about getting a visa. Yuri said that people shouldn't believe Kurt was always sad, because he had a lot of humor and never mentioned suicide to Yuri. A doctor who treated Kurt in Rome said, quote, "The last image I have of him, which in the light of the tragedy now seems pathetic, is of a young man playing with the little girl, Frances. He did not seem like a young man who wanted to end it all." Charles Peterson, a photographer and associate of Kurt, was quoted in an interview about Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit music video. Quote, "What sticks in my mind is actually running into him on the street about 2 weeks before he killed himself. And it was just, I guess in relation to events, I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that I saw him. We talked and we exchanged phone numbers, and he was really happy about the fact my book of photographs that I'm doing, he was like, 'All right, at last, get the real thing.' And we chatted, and he was concerned about my wife's illness, and just really, that sticks in my mind."